Hi, welcome to James Miller Lifeology, where you learn to simplify and transform your spirit, mind, and body. My name is James Miller. I'm a licensed psychotherapist and a composer. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Let's get started. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to listen to this show. When you're done listening, I hope you take a minute and write a quick review on whichever radio or podcast platform you've heard this show. Your insights will help others to be inspired and encouraged. I have a great show for you today. I'm going to teach you the importance of self-care. I'll also be interviewing Christina Rivera, who is a business consultant and the executive producer and host of Savvy's Broadcasting, a Unscripted radio show. She's here today to give us her wisdom and what to do when your business goes stale and you aren't sure what to do next. For more information about Christina, please visit LifeUnscriptedRadio.com. I have some exciting news. Did you know that I'm on the radio 3 times a week? You may hear me on this same station on Tuesdays at 1:30 p.m., Fridays at 9:30 a.m., and Saturday at 12:30 p.m. You may also hear me anytime on iHeartRadio, as well as on all the other major podcasting platforms, including iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, and many others. Simply search for the show name, James Miller Lifeology, or simply go to jamesmillerlifeology.com. Are you struggling to find your purpose? Has mediocrity set in and you can't imagine doing the same thing for the rest of your life? Are your relationships struggling or you aren't sure how to make long-lasting changes? Then contact me, James Miller. I will help you recognize the areas in your life that are going really well, and then we will look at the areas in which you're struggling. We will create actionable solutions to help you create long-lasting changes. You don't have to do this alone. Go to my website, jamesmillerlifeology.com, and click on the page Work with James. Fill out that form, and it will be sent directly to me. Don't let another day go by without finding your way. Your change can start today. Once again, go to jamesmillerlifeology.com and click on the page Work with James. Fill out that form to get started today. The importance of self-care. We all look forward to our vacations. We'll plan accordingly and can't wait until the day comes when we can travel to our location. And in the grand scheme of things, vacations are incredibly important. But did you know that self-care is a daily activity we should all engage in? When I was in full-time private practice, I would do 15-minute sessions with each client. In between each of those sessions, sometimes I'd scarf down food as quickly as I could, return a couple emails, and then I would start my next session. For a while, I was able to maintain that. But what I realized was I needed a form of self-care. The great thing about self-care is it does not have to be something that's planned out in the future, like a vacation. It's something you can do every moment. When I learned that I needed more self-care in between those clients, I would bring my book. For those of you who know me, I love to read. For me to indulge in reading a couple pages of a book I was reading, that was very important for me. I found that my ability to work with clients grew exponentially when I took just those few minutes to give myself a break. When we look at our life, we have so many responsibilities. Many of us have family members we take care of. Many of us have multiple responsibilities at work. And so the idea of taking self-care doesn't really resonate with us. Did you realize that the energy that you give to all of your responsibilities should really be the overflow that you have? For example, when you think of a glass of water, the water that's inside the glass is all of your energy. When you continually give out that water to all the different responsibilities, all the different people you have to work with, what's left? That's where we become exhausted. That's where our emotions become agitated and frustrated, and we're just incredibly tired. So the great thing about self-care is when you think of that glass of water, self-care replenishes that water. So the more often you replenish it, the more the overflow of that energy, in other words, the overflow of that water, becomes what you give to the people around you. So self-care is essentially your ability to maintain your reserves so that you don't become agitated, you don't become burnt out, you don't become frustrated, and you're able to quickly reset so that you approach any situation with focus, with dedication, with determination. Think of the hobbies that you have, and perhaps some of you have forgotten about them. So think back on things that you've enjoyed doing in the past. What brought you joy? Well, many of you may think, well, I just don't have time for that. Remember, in the information gathering stage, we're just looking at all the different activities that you enjoyed in the past. Doesn't mean you have time to do them today, but you want to collect all of those activities and write them down on a piece of paper. Because when you have those activities in front of you, it's easy to then say, all right, I've got 10 minutes. What can I do in 10 minutes? But when we realize we have a few minutes and we don't know what to do, unfortunately, those few minutes are not used in a self-care way. One thing that we can all do is to learn how to meditate. And what I mean by that is essentially this. Anytime you pay attention to something in your mind, that's actually a form of meditation. So a quick way to meditate is you focus on a memory that brings you happiness, a memory that brings you joy, a memory that brings a smile to your face. When you can think about that memory and try and play it out in your mind, you'll find that that resets that cup of water and starts to give you a little bit more peace, a little bit more joy, a little bit more happiness. That is a quick way to reset. That little form of resetting is a form of self-care. And the more often you can do that, the more you'll find that your energy is being restored. Now that's a real small form of self-care, but that in itself is important. Sometimes going to bed 10 minutes earlier is a form of self-care. You're allowing yourself to relax. Other times, it's waking up 10 minutes earlier so you can sit with a cup of coffee and enjoy the sunrise. When you look at your schedule, you'll find that if you're continually feeling exhausted, you need to implement small little activities of self-care to help you break up the monotony, to help you break up the stress, so that you can give yourself small little tidbits of self-care. So every day, I challenge you, incorporate as many forms of self-care as possible. Self-care can be from the smallest 1 to 2 minute things to those vacations that we long for. The more often you incorporate self-care, the more successful you'll be to accomplish all the responsibilities you have without feeling exhausted. I wanted to take just a quick moment to thank you all who continually support and listen to James Miller Lifeology. I have been so blessed and honored by your continual support. However, I want to make sure that you don't miss out on anything exciting that's happening over here. So go to jamesmillerlifeology.com or lifeology.tv and sign up for the free weekly recap. Each week, I will send you an email which has all the latest radio episodes, YouTube episodes, magazine articles, and self-help products specifically for you. Once again, go to jamesmillerlifeology.com or lifeology.tv and sign up for the free weekly recap. Christina Rivera is a highly sought-after consultant, speaker, and host of Savvy Broadcasting's Life Unscripted radio show. As the host, Christina has a unique ability to connect with each and every guest at an emotional level that sets her apart from other broadcasters. She's here today to give us her wisdom and what to do when your business goes stale and you aren't sure what to do next. Welcome to my show, Christina.
Aw, thank you so much, James. I'm so happy to be here and be a return guest. And you're going to be a return guest to our show as well. I'm really excited to be with you here today.
I am so grateful as well. And so, yeah, you were on my show a couple years ago, twice actually. So congratulations. You used to be Christina Nichman. Now you're Christina Rivera. Congratulations. That's wonderful.
Thank you. That's right. For people who might be like, well, who's this Christina Rivera person?
I know. It's wonderful. So now you've undergone a lot of changes in your own business. And so I think you're going to be the expert in this as far as what to do when your business goes stale, how to revamp, what to do next. So let's just jump right on in. You started Savvy Business Radio how long ago?
I started it in 2012, and initially, as I said in one of our past interviews together, it was initially a marketing tool for my financial consulting business at the time, and it was a way to get my expertise out there, to build my credibility, for people to get me to know me in the industry, not as a worker bee, but as someone that could help them really grow their business, find out where their problems are with cash flow. And the show just took into a whole new entity and became its own kind of business without me even trying. And within 6 months, we had 45,000 listeners.
Wow, that's amazing.
And within a year, we had sponsors. So it's really been an awesome ride. And this is interesting. One of my favorite business coaches says businesses will come to him and say, oh, I was great 5 years ago. Everything was rocking. Things were great a year ago. And things changed.
Yes.
And that's what happened with us. We found that we had a drop in numbers and just not the same listenership. And we were like, what's going on? Our guests are more awesome than ever. So we took a step back and we took a 6-month hiatus to really examine how could we come out in a bigger, better way. And I think this happens for a lot of businesses.
Yes, it certainly does. You know, when you reflect on this from a broader spectrum, we've all heard about Blockbuster. Blockbuster, for some of you who weren't around at that time, Blockbuster was this place where you go and you would rent VHS videos and then some DVDs as well. And they were the biggest the biggest business in that market and fantastic at that time. And a small little company once came to them and said, hey, we have this ability to stream movies to your computer or to your TV. We would love to partner with you. And at that time, Blockbuster said, sorry, we are the experts in this. We don't need you. So that small little company turned into Netflix. And so unfortunately for Blockbuster, they weren't viable. They didn't know how to necessarily keep up for whatever reason. And now we all know who Netflix is. And so I think that's a great analogy as well, as far as your business, my business, anyone listening. And when we're not able to refresh and really look at the trends and look at what's happening in the world around us, unfortunately, we will not be as viable as we were before.
Yeah, James, and I also find that you get used to being and doing things the exact same way, and you think, well, it worked last year, and why can't I keep doing it? And this goes for just, making sales in your business, connecting with your clients the same way, and you're like, why aren't they getting back to me? One client said to me a couple of years ago, I don't get back to you because I only text. If you don't get back to me via text, I won't call you or I won't contact you.
Well, that's interesting.
So I realized I had to, I love phones. I love talking to people, Skyping with them, kind of making that more real connection. I feel for me, it feels more like a viable connection, but not for some people. For some people, it's like my time is really precious. It's limited, and this is how I want to communicate.
That's actually really interesting. I hadn't really thought about that because, maybe we're old school. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, when it comes to business, I want to talk. So I guess let me reflect and back up for a second. I do have some people I do work with that I've hired them. But now that I reflect on that, they only text me back, and I'm like, why aren't you calling me back? But you know what? I just simply need to ask them.
And that's what happened to me. He was basically, I just said, why aren't you calling me back? He's like, because you're calling me. That's the basic. Stop calling me. Text me. I was like, good. Okay, got it.
When you took a step back for the 6 months, what were some of the questions or some of the ways you were to say, well, we need to take a break? What was it that happened for you?
Well, here's the great thing, James. When I took the break, for one, I just called everyone and said, listen, I just need a couple months breather, just not to talk to anyone, just to get reflective of what's going on with my life. Because I was working probably 12 to 15 hours doing finances in Manhattan, and then coming home and doing editing and interviewing in the evening. Sometimes telling my wonderful new husband, move on over, I've got an interview.
That's hysterical.
What was really great about taking that breather is when you step back from your life, you're able to see, okay, what am I doing? I'm like a hamster on a wheel going 300 miles an hour. And I was able to examine what's working and what's not working, both with my clients in Manhattan and also with my show. And so that was the first thing I did. Then once I got in contact with both the audience, because I put out a survey, and also with my past guests, I found that a lot of them were just as busy as I was and losing their mind and running in 20 different directions. And they said, if your show is a little bit shorter, that would be helpful because I'm just running too fast. Can we make this show a little, shorter? And I said, okay, so that was the first thing that came to mind, is that we're going to have a 15-minute show that's going to go straight to the meat of the potatoes. And then I started to find, this is purely by accident, I was in Seattle with my husband he was having surgery, and I started just doing these little updates. Oh, here's where I am, here's a lesson I'm learning today, or here's the lesson I've learned in the past from business, and sharing it. And I was like, wow, you know what if we ask our guests to come on and share their weekly savvy biz tips?
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, and people started going, yeah, I like that idea. And so, my weekly, it's just by kind of my update to Facebook and my audience, just letting them know where I'm at so I didn't disappear off the face of the earth, is now going to be part of our show, where the guest and the audience can come on in and give us a biz tip of the week, and we'll share it with our audience, and then everyone learns and grows.
Yeah, that is fantastic. And it's interesting. I love how you obviously listen to your audience as far as this. 15 minutes, but it's kind of a win-win for everybody, because a 15-minute show of editing is totally different than the previous length that you did before. So you're like, yeah, of course, that works for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because and I thought that was interesting, because I was like, I said to my husband, he said this to me 2 years ago, come on, shorten the show, people don't have time for that. I'm like, no, people stop listening if I make it shorter, because I was doing 30-40 minutes, sometimes if it's an awesome guest, an hour.
Oh gosh,
and because there's some great, amazing people out there doing amazing things in their business, and we can all learn from it. But it's sometimes great to get tidbits, lessons in small bits, and as my husband said, it leads them wanting to come back for the next episode and let me get the next tip tomorrow, or next show.
That is amazing. So how did you come up with Life Unscripted?
It's interesting. I was sitting here listening to one of my favorite all-time business mentors, David Nagel, and he said, I never script things. Years ago, I went out there with my teacher, Bob Proctor, and he said, okay, we're gonna do this 3-day course thing, and we're not going to script it. And he's like, what do you mean we're going to script it? Because he was like writing everything down, and he was like, no, we're going to go and let spirit, move us along and tell us what direction to go in. And he was like, whoa, I don't know if I could do that. He did do it, and he's gotten the best content doing it that way, because you let the audience tell you what they need, and then you go there. And so that's what he's always done in his teaching. And listening to his podcast, I thought, that's what I've always done in Savvy, period, because for me, I don't do well when I read a script. It sounds choppy. It looks like sounds like I'm reading, and it sounds really awful. So what I've always done is just say, okay, here's a topic. Let's just go with it. Yeah. And so then I said, oh, boom, Life Unscripted. So Life Unscripted with Christina Rivera, because there's a couple of Life Unscripted out there. So we kept our original name as our actual parent company, Savvy Broadcasting. We're LLC. And then we're going to go Life Unscripted, which will be the actual show through Savvy Broadcasting.
Oh, that's amazing. From a psychological standpoint, there was a study that was done of these individuals. I think there was like 10 of them. And it's a long time since I've told this story, but there's about 10 of them. And there were 2 facilitators. And so the group came together for this group, and they all had similar traits. But what happened was the 2 facilitators just sat there, and they didn't say anything. And people were like, why are we here? What is going on? And so then all of a sudden you found that the participants started to get angry. Then you'd see all their personality traits come out, where sometimes people would be this, you see the alpha people, or more the submissive people, or more the grumblers. And all these elements came out within an hour. And at the very end of it, the facilitator said that was the experience, in the sense of when you allow yourself just to be, you'll see the different facets that come out in your life, whether it's pretty, whether it's not pretty. But it was just such an interesting research study that happened, as far as when a group of people come together, you'll see automatically what they're dealing with in the moment and how it comes out. And so it was just, I thought, just a brilliant way. And, piggybacking off of your show as well, when you have an idea and then you allow the organic conversations, just like this one, to be able to unfold, you'll find that you get so much more meat than the scripted questions that people will often ask.
Yeah, and sometimes you can get good content, because my first month or 2 doing the show, I scripted it. I was like, so what is your business? How long have you, sometimes the guest can send you some good content, but it's not engaging to listen to. You're not excited to listen to it. And but another thing we got from our audience is they love the visual content. That's becoming more and more relevant in business, is the video, the Skyping visually. People, I think, want to do that kind of more personal connection that we were talking about in the beginning of the conversation, but not necessarily by meeting a person, because we're so busy. We're all scattered across the planet. And so video is yet another way that people were excited for the show to go in. So all of our interviews will now also be in video, online video. So that's an exciting new thing too. So now we can engage and both emotionally see each other as we connect with each other and interview with each other. So it'll be a lot of fun.
That is amazing. So I have listeners right now who are like, I am in the same position, Christina. I've had a very viable business, but I'm realizing it's getting stale. What would be some tips that you would give them to help them kind of revamp it or retool it?
Yeah, absolutely. I say the first thing to do is really take a major step back and maybe take a vacation somewhere. But hey, if you can't take a vacation, take a staycation and and really step back and just let it be. Maybe do nothing. And sometimes you think you have to do a whole bunch to get going and go forward. What I did when I went with my husband to Seattle is really nothing but take walks and really take a relaxing time to get comfortable with myself. That was the first thing. And number 2 that was really awesome is reconnecting with taking care of myself. So what I start to go is I go more to the gym more regularly, so that now I'm taking care of myself, a more refreshed, relaxed, exercise person who's gone to the gym.
I know. I see you look great, by the way.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. But it helps, like your mind gets more clear. I'm like, why couldn't I see this before? Because my mind was going 300 miles an hour. I wasn't working out. I was drinking 10 cups of coffee a day.
But you really think about that. It's what I'm basically hearing you say, and these are my words, not yours, is it just boils down to self-care. When you can slow down and put yourself and your needs first and what is healthy for you, you then have a clearer perspective. Because if we don't put our own personal needs first, and I don't mean in a selfish way, I just mean in personal health, just our personal care, then when we don't do that, unfortunately, that trickles over to other areas, and then our bandwidth becomes too full. One of my favorite quotes is, "Divided waters lose force." And so the more divided it is, the less pressure it has to be able to be successful. So if you look at your life and you find, oh my gosh, I don't have any time for anything, even my personal life or things that I enjoy, my hobbies, exercise, whatever it may be, you more than likely have divided those waters so much that you don't have anything really left to give.
Exactly. And you think, but I have to do this, I have to give, but you're on empty, and you're at the point where if you are giving anything, it's not your best. And that's another thing I was finding, that I thought I was giving my best, but could you give your best if you're half exhausted and going on fumes? Not really.
Well, even think about that from an expert standpoint. If I am teaching people, we'll say my personal life here, if as an example, let's say I'm an expert in something. Well, I guess I am. I'm an expert in something. And here I am, I'm saying all these things and I'm doing all these things, but I'm not taking my personal self-care. How can I be at the forefront of my industry if I'm, for one, not doing what I think I'm supposed to do, or doing what I tell others to do, or just simply if I'm not refreshed, then I can't be at the top of my game. And so if I'm not at the top of my game, I can't be a quote expert to be able to help other people. So whatever the person's niche or business niche is, you really want to reflect on that, as what you're teaching, even though our heart is in the right place, but is our schedule in the right place? And so we really want to make sure all those things are aligned, because if they're not, you'll find that like you found it, I found it as well, that life doesn't happen the way we want it to, and then we will find that there are some blind spots that we didn't realize.
Yeah. And don't be scared of the change. I found one of my first little blurb things is, I used to written journal. I started doing the biz tips, which actually became life and biz tips at the same time. But one of my very first ones was pause, reset, and because you need that pause, reset, but be okay that it's okay to change. And I think that's also a scary thing for people, is that the actual idea of change.
Well, in that, because when we're so comfortable in what we had before, that's what worked, and kind of what we said earlier, but you can't get any water out of a stone after it's dried up. It's just not going to work. And so learning how to say, okay, well, yesterday was different. Today is new. How can I get in front of that trend? So I think even coming from an anticipatory standpoint of even today, knowing that, maybe in 4 months, I'm not going to be as viable. So how can I make sure I'm ahead of the trend? Not in an anxious way, but how can I look a little bit further? Because once again, those techniques and tactics we have today will work, but they always need to be retooled. So to become an expert, or to become in front of the curve, you really have to have an anticipatory mindset to kind of look at, what are the trends right now, and how can I get ahead of it so that I can continue to stay viable?
Like Blockbusters to Netflix. If they had just been open to the idea, let's chat with these guys, maybe they have something, or maybe jump on their idea before they got it really revved outside the door. That was a great lesson.
Yeah, it's unfortunate for many people, but it's the same thing. When you look at AOL was an amazing company, humongous, and then that is now, for whatever reason, it's not as viable as it was before. You have all these other companies who have overshadowed them.
Absolutely.
And so once again, it just goes back to, when you look at your own life, when you look at your business, when you look at anything you do, even outside of business, if you're not taking that personal time to really reflect and to take that time of meditation and take that time of just stillness, you're not going to see that perhaps you are not as viable as you thought before.
Yeah, and that it's sometimes all it is a small tweak. Sometimes it's not even super huge. Like what we've done here is not really super huge, but for one, we let our audience know we're listening to them, and then we're putting out the show in a way that's just best for everyone, including me, because it takes less time to do a 40-minute show less time to do a 15-minute show as opposed to a 40-minute show.
Yes, exactly. And I once heard it said that a minor adjustment makes a major improvement. So when you think about that, like, for example, you can't see me right now, but my fingers are together, my two fingers. And so when I make a slight adjustment, like they slowly start to diverge or separate, and then pretty soon, a foot away from where it started, all of a sudden they're a foot apart. And so it's the same concept as well. A small little tweak and another little tweak and another little tweak every day or every week can put you in a different trajectory than you originally had.
Yeah, I have a book for everyone, Atomic Habits, and it talked just about that same thing, about the small, teeny changes in life add up to big changes in your life.
Yes. And sometimes it can happen a lot more quickly than we think, because sometimes people are like, oh, I have to make these drastic changes because that's what I need. And yeah, sometimes that's the case. But other times, those small little tweaks, that's something we can deal with. We can do that. We're mindful of it. We can have it right in the forefront of our mind today. And then the next day we make another little tweak. And that's palpable. That's something we can do on a daily basis, and we're aware of it. But sometimes those bigger ones, it's like, oh my gosh, this is too much. I don't know how to do it. I can't sustain this.
James, when I lost weight, my goal was to lose 60. I'm probably down to 35 right now.
That's awesome.
But what's amazing about it, when you get started and you have that much weight to lose, you're like, oh my gosh, that's insurmountable.
Yes.
And it's really not. You take one step in front of the other, and then you see 10 pounds come off, then 15 pounds. Then you begin to get excited because you're seeing, but then they'll go through a plateau. Like I got to a plateau, and then you're okay, now I'm not moving. But it's then, okay, these small changes, what can you do to make it that much quicker?
Exactly.
Or that much more healthy, so that it's, but it's that taking over time, that bit by bit.
And that's where if we do bite off more than we can chew, no pun intended, what that does is it doesn't allow for us to be successful. So anytime people want to make a change, you want to make the first couple changes as if they're successful, because if you make them too big and you aren't able to accomplish it, that's really defeating. So always, anytime people make a change, you want to make sure that you have a win up front, and the second win and the third win, because that gives you the motivation to be able to conquer, or rather find the longevity for that change.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was one of the tips in Atomic Habit as well. It was an amazing little book, because a lot of them you do, but you don't realize that the teeny little actions like that, just taking one small bite, will lead to the next, to the next, to the next. Oh, look, I'm an Olympian now. 10 years later, but yeah.
But you did it. Yeah, exactly. But because at that moment, 10 years earlier, you wouldn't have even had the concept that you could be an Olympian.
Exactly.
But the point is, like we said, one step allows for the next step. Christina Rivera, it has been an absolute pleasure having you on my show today. Thank you so much for being a fantastic guest. If my listeners would like to find out more information about you and to listen to your amazing show, Life Unscripted Radio, where would they find all this information online?
Absolutely. They can go to LifeUnscriptedRadio.com. And we're always open to new guests and, of course, to biz tips, savvy biz tips. So you can always send those to Christina at LifeUnscriptedRadio.com.
Excellent. Well, Christina, once again, thank you so much, my friend, for being a guest on my show today. I really appreciate all your wisdom.
You betcha. It was a blast. Thank you so much, James.
I also want to thank you, my listener, for tuning in today. Please subscribe to this radio show through whichever portal you join me today. Also, please go to my website where you may sign up for the free weekly recap, watch my YouTube episodes, read the articles I've written specifically for you, and purchase my previous guests' self-help products. If you'd like to work with me, be a guest on, or advertise on this show, visit JamesMillerLifeology.com. Be sure to follow me on all social media platforms under the name James Miller Lifeology, except for Twitter, which is James M. Lifeology. Once again, thank you so much for your support, and I'll talk to you soon.
AM/FM 247, the best in talk and music all day and every day.